Greetings. Thank you very much for joining me today. My name is Matthew Pillmore, and I am president of a company called VIP Enterprises. We're also known as VIP Financial Education, and you are about to witness one of the most extraordinary classes that you've ever seen. It has become so popular, in fact, that we have been recruited to design this same curriculum for companies like NASA, Chicago Title, and even the police department, to name a few. It is known as our 100% debt-free for life class. Now, you're about to see some things that you've never seen before. This is something that will change the way that you look at money and banks forever. In fact, what we're going to cover today together includes how to own your own home with no mortgage. Now, there are a number of different ways that you can achieve this result. This is just one that is fast, safe, and easy. We're also going to discuss a legal way to save over $100,000 on your current home loan. This is true whether you want to sell your home within the next couple of years or whether you want to stay in the home indefinitely. Every single property that you buy and hold where you plan to finance it, this technique will work to save over $100,000 on that property. We're also going to discuss how you can turn the banks against themselves, so to speak, but in a good way, where the banks win and you get to pay off all of your debt 3 to 5 times faster. How does that sound? Being completely debt-free, not owing one penny to anyone. Your life would be a lot different, wouldn't it? In fact, these techniques work so well that you will be able to invest more quickly and safely as you practice these techniques, where you're not just paying off all of your debt, you're actually building wealth at the same time, which is important if you ever want to retire. I'm so confident that you're going to love what you see over the next 20 minutes of this hour-long class that you will be ecstatic to share it with future generations, including your own kids, your neighbors, your coworkers and staff, and your clients. My hope is that you will bring it to your boss, and we can even come in and do classes for you and for your entire workplace. Okay, now before we dive right in, I'm going to request a couple very difficult tasks of you. This class, in order to get from it what you deserve, will require your undivided attention. We've been providing this class over the last few years to hundreds of live audiences, and it's received such great feedback that we've decided to build it into this online format. But it's tricky because there are so many distractions when you're sitting there at your computer. The kids are bothering you, you're surfing the web, you're answering phone calls, you're getting up and leaving. So make sure you turn your phone off. It's only going to take an hour to go through this information, and you're going to learn things that will change your life. Close your other browser windows so you're not tempted to surf the internet. Refrain from emailing while we're watching this information. It's going to be all content, so we're going to dive right in today and really begin to impress you right out of the gate. And just find a quiet place to sit and take notes. There will be bonuses waiting for you at the end because I want to incentivize you to pay attention. In order to understand what this class is, it's helped a lot of people to start by understanding what it is not. This is not a refinance. It will not require any financial investment to be made in order to achieve really remarkable results. Multi-level software programs are out there right now where they're going to come in and provide for you some education that really is quite good, but that's not what this is. This is not a network marketing company where people are being paid to try and teach you how to do things differently with your money with some sort of budgeting software. This also is not a loan modification, so we're not going to go back to your current bank and, negotiate new terms of your loans, which also kind of includes the debt consolidation, debt settlement type. Debt consolidation and debt settlement have a lot of negative side effects. This will actually not create any negative side effects for you whatsoever. And I'm also not an investment advisor, so I'm also not going to try and sell you any investment products at any time. This is going to be unlike anything you've probably ever seen before. It has no negative side effects at all, and it rarely requires any sacrifices to lifestyle. It will work for you whether you are rich or poor, young or old, W-2'd or self-employed. That's right, even if you're self-employed, this is going to work for you. It doesn't matter where you are currently right now. Your financial circumstances are irrelevant. It will apply to you in some way, shape, or form and benefit you. Just a couple more housekeeping details and then I'm going to dive right in. This presentation is just for educational purposes only. The numbers are going to be estimated, and I estimate them conservatively in order to simplify the training. We do leave out some of the details of the example we go through just to make sure that you can wrap your mind around it. The first time you see it, it can be somewhat confusing. You will love what you see here today if you pay close attention. The training is not a substitute for financial, investment, legal, or tax advice. It's also not a promotion for my products or services. For guidance pertaining to your specific situation or the governing laws in your state, please make sure you consult with a specialist in your area. Because this can be so confusing, what I'm going to do today is offer something very special for you, the online listener, because you have a bit of a disadvantage seeing as how you can't come to a live class. So I'm going to offer you a free personal implementation coaching session or a counseling session that'll be done over the phone, and that'll be included with the class today for free in order to help you safely use the information in your life. Please do not practice things the exact way you see it taught today, because this is not going to be your specific example. And I'm sure you would agree that you are different from everybody else around you financially. We're all like financial snowflakes. So it's important that we make sure that the techniques that you use in your life are appropriate to your circumstances. So I will teach you at the very end of today's training how to get access to that personal implementation coaching session. So please stay until the very end. Now, what we're going to cover today is a real life case study. This is a couple that attended one of our classes. In fact, it was just Megan who attended the live event. And they've authorized us to share their story with you here today. And the reason that I think they're willing to share it is because they're hopeful that other people will learn from it and you'll gain. Unfortunately, we as consumers are deprived of a formal education about money in school. When you think back to your years in school, where did you learn about debt and how to manage your cash flow and your credit scores? It was non-existent. So Dan and Megan Albright have been agreeable to sharing their ordinary circumstances and how they were able to build a plan that produced extraordinary results. And I hope you learned something from that today. So we're going to go through a 3-year, 2-month chronological plan, and I'm going to show you how this all came together. Now, it all started when we met Megan at an event where there were probably 90, 95 attendees. And it went real well. There were a number of people who came up to me afterwards with questions, and I remember looking off to the side and seeing Megan standing in the wings, for some reason reluctant to approach. In fact, she waited until I was loading up my car to come up to me, and I could see the emotional impact that her money was having on her. And I know that you would agree that money is both emotionally and physically stressful. So I could see it in her face and in her eyes. I saw her posture hunched over, and she literally thought that her and Dan had built themselves a financial mess that they would never be able to clean up. And I want to see whether or not you agree with that. At the time, they were renters, so they weren't even yet homeowners when we met them, which can be somewhat unusual. They really had no plan to speak of, and this was back in December of 2008. And what we did first was we set their 3 to 5-year financial goals. So I'm going to ask you to do the same thing. You and your significant other, if you have one, should sit down and evaluate what are our top 3 to 5 financial goals. And those goals can be independent of one another. Going into the next step of our 7-point plan, in January of 2009, Dan and Megan built their cash flow cruncher. Another bonus that I'm going to provide to you for listening here today online is you will get your own copy of this cash flow cruncher tool just for participating in this class. And I will show you how to get a copy of that if you can make it all the way to the end of the training today. The training will be about 1 hour long, so be prepared for that type of a timeline. The next step that they had to follow after they completed their cash flow cruncher was we needed to review their starting cash flow position. And cash flow here at VIP is defined as the difference between what you earn every month and what you spend every month. Now, a lot of times, because expenses are never consistent, and because those of us who are self-employed have inconsistent income, cash flow is very unpredictable. What you need to do is work off of averages. If you're self-employed, and even if you're not, make sure that you're using average expenses and average revenue. And the best thing to do is extend the length of the averaged period or the term. So 24 months worth of averages seems to work well for most people. We also then need to review the starting FICO scores. Now, FICO is the credit scoring formula built by Fair Isaac. And Fair Isaac created the original credit scoring system, and therefore about 90% of banks use the FICO credit scoring formula to determine whether or not you're approved for any type of lending. So it's important to always be looking at their FICO scores versus any other credit scoring formula that's out there. And I will teach you a little later in today's class where to get those. The next step was to increase those credit scores and then plugging the leaks inside the cash flow cruncher. Now, plugging leaks specifically means preserving the lifestyle that you have, being able to keep the things you enjoy in your life, but spending less on them. So we have a number of different techniques to help you achieve that goal. In fact, everybody that we speak to can plug over $100 worth of leaks every single month at a minimum. So it's very important to make sure that you don't feel like this is about going on a budget. We're not going to talk about going on a budget today at all. Keep the lifestyle you have, and in many cases, you get to enhance or improve that lifestyle. So that's a really exciting piece about today's class. The fifth step is to then identify new debt weapons that you can use to achieve your financial goals more quickly. And you will be a beginning expert on debt weapons by the end of today's training. Between May of 2009 and February of 2012, we were able to pay off all of Dan and Megan's non-mortgage related debt and build more debt weapons. At no point are we ever going to be done helping you get access to more of these debt weapons because they will be the tools that you use to accelerate your goals. And finally, in January of 2012, Dan and Megan's cash flow position grew from $390 on average each month to over $2,000 each month with the exact same income level. So I'm going to show you exactly how that happened. They then bought a home, put themselves on an 8.5-year payoff plan, and began investing at the same time. Can you imagine owning your own home free and clear in less than 9 years? Pretty cool stuff. Now, what I'm going to do, because I think it's the most exciting way to work it, is reverse engineer this 3.2 years. So I'm going to start with the end in mind. I'm going to walk you through their plan, but we're going to reverse it, where we're going to show you after they bought their home in January of 2012, what was their 8.5-year payoff plan? If you only have a mortgage and you do not have any consumer debt, now's the time to really listen up, because I'm going to show you how to save over $100,000 on every single property that you choose to buy and finance. It doesn't matter whether you want to keep it for a short period of time or own it for a long time. This is extremely relevant. It doesn't matter whether you have an adjustable rate mortgage or a fixed mortgage. It doesn't matter whether you have an interest-only mortgage or a fully amortized mortgage. It doesn't matter whether you have a negatively amortized mortgage. What we're about to show you right now can change your life. So let's dive right in. This is where ordinary becomes extraordinary. This, my friend, is known as a truth in lending document. Every time you have refinanced a mortgage or have purchased a new home and financed it, you have had to sign one of these documents. And the significance about this document is that not only does it detail for you the loan amount, and in Dan and Megan's case, it was $290,000, and the interest rate, and in Dan and Megan's case, that was at 5.2%, but it also details for you the term. Theirs was a 30-year loan, so it was a 360-month term. Have you been taught that the interest rates are important? Of course you have, but let me ask you another very, very important question. Do you believe that the banks have built their rules in favor of you and me, the consumers? It's absurd for me to even say that out loud, isn't it? Absolutely not. And they shouldn't. They're in business to make money. But when you sit and think about who has taught you to pay attention as much as you do to the interest rate itself, somewhere along the line, the banks probably played a role in that. If your parents taught you, the banks probably played a role in them learning it. So the bottom line is this: if the banks don't build their rules in favor of you and me, and they're the ones saying that you should pay closest attention to the interest rate itself, perhaps it's not in your best interest to do so. The piece to the equation that we're not taught to focus on is the actual term of the loan. This 360 months is the problem, and here's why. When this 5.2% interest rate, which is decent, we've seen better, we've seen worse. When that's amortized over a 30-year term, the total cost of this mortgage to Dan and Megan will be $283,000 in interest. Almost the same amount financed in interest, making this mortgage approximately $575,000 over this 360-month period. $573,000. That's absurd. What if I could show you how to prevent as much as 80% of that right now? Do I have your attention? Great. Now, there are a number of ways to achieve the results I'm about to show you. The one approach that I think is the best is the one that you're going to stick with. And we've designed a system for this where it's much easier to remain consistent and disciplined. Regardless of which approach you choose to take, this is one that we can agree on is wrong. Do not agree to pay under the bank's terms or you will spend too much money. Now, the approach that we've designed is actually favorable to the bank as well, because we're going to show you how to use what they provide for you in a much better way. So the banks actually really enjoy what we teach. Now, this is a summary of Dan and Megan's circumstances 3.2 years after we met them. This property they bought had an original estimated value of about $325,000. Values are subjective, as you know. The balance on their mortgage was $290,000. At 5.2%, here you see the $283,000 in interest. Their average take-home revenue each month was about $5,950. And the reason I emphasize average is because Dan was self-employed, so his revenue was inconsistent. So you've got to make sure you use averages. Their mortgage payment was rounded up to about $1,600. A little less than that, but we just want to make the numbers easy to follow along. And their living expenses totaled about $2,325 per month. Living expenses are the items that you will have to pay even when you are debt-free. So it includes your utilities, your taxes, insurance, your gasoline, auto repairs, all those unexpected circumstances in life. It includes travel and eating out, all of the luxury items in life. So you're always going to use averages here as well, and that's important to do over a 2-year period, so that you can include the unexpected, unpredictable circumstances that come up. Life happens. Now, in their case, this produced for them about 3.2 years after we met them, a total of just over $2,000 in cash flow. That's pretty dang good. Considering when we first met them, they were at $390 in positive cash flow. So let me show you what we're going to do in order to achieve these extraordinary results and prevent all this interest on this loan. We use the debt weapons over here that they now have access to, and they've been working for the last 3 years to get these. We're going to use one of these debt weapons to flip the amortization schedule upside down on itself. Okay, so we got this $290,000 loan. We're going to borrow from this debt weapon, this $25,000 debt weapon, a total of $20,000 and apply it towards that mortgage. Keep in mind, I'm going to teach you all about debt weapons a little later in the class. So be patient because this will begin to make more and more sense as we go through the training. Now, when I take $20,000 from this available $25,000, the availability drops to just $5,000 on this account, and the available reserves then drops to about $58,500. You see that happen there? Okay, so now I have this $20,000 debt. I'm going to give you a little spoiler alert now. This debt weapon was an unsecured personal line of credit. Now, this is not a home equity line of credit. Home equity lines of credit are actually collateralized against the property. They're secured. This is unsecured, meaning that it's the same thing as a signature loan. And the beauty of this is that it works the exact same way as a checking account. They have check writing capabilities with it. I'm going to show you the questions you need to answer in order to get access to these debt weapons a little bit later. Now, when I apply a $20,000 lump sum amount to this mortgage, what does the balance then become? That's right, about $270,000. But we now have the same amount of debt. You see that? Same amount of debt, 270 plus 20 equals 290. It's just dispersed differently. So this is where we start to take control of our finances. We're essentially positively manipulating the way that our debt is being serviced. Now, when Dan and Megan earn this money here, this $5,950 on average each month, what would they normally do with that paycheck? Where would they put it? Hopefully you're following along and your answer was a checking or a savings account. Most people use a checking or a savings account for a number of different reasons, none of which are a financial benefit. You do not get much, if anything at all, to use your checking and savings accounts. In fact, let's take a quick look at a graph that we created to help you understand this. Your money is essentially unemployed for as much as 3/4 of your financially independent life. 3/4 of your financially independent life, your money is sitting in a checking or a savings account unemployed. Let me show you. This is you over here looking kind of pathetic. You're working hard every single day to earn your money. You then take that money and you deposit it directly into your bank, right? This looks familiar. For 20 to 28 days of every single month from this point on, the bank is using your money all month and paying little to nothing for it. Sounds familiar, right? while at the same time, interest is compounding against you on other debts. Far too much money is being spent within several areas of your budget, and I'll show you that later. That's where we plug the leaks. And in the end, the bank reaps all the rewards. And at the end of each month, you then pay your bills, your mortgages, your credit cards, auto loans, student loans, etc., as well as your living expenses. And this process is just simply repeated every single month. So you never get ahead, and it's costing you a ton of money. I'm going to show you how to still get the benefits of a checking and savings account, which, by the way, what are those benefits? Let's think about it. Well, first of all, they're safe, okay? Most of these accounts are insured by the FDIC. So safety is a big thing for us. Safer than putting it into a mattress or a hole in the backyard or a hole in the wall. They're also liquid, so we can get our money. They're convenient, so we can write checks, pay our bills, all that stuff. And then we also have access to a transaction history, so we can see what was coming in and what was going out. I'm going to show you how to use debt weapons where you can actually get all of these benefits. In fact, this debt weapon that we're talking about here with Dan and Megan right now offers all of those same benefits: safety, liquidity, convenience, and transaction history, but every dollar is now going to be put to work. So watch what I mean. Instead of them taking the $5,950 that they would normally get each and every month on average and putting it into their checking or savings account, they're now going to paycheck park it against this debt weapon, bringing this balance from $20,000 down to about $14,050. Now, this is going to require a significant change in the way that you think about money. The problem is you've never been taught a better way than what you've been doing. Okay, so you have to accept first and foremost that there might be a better way to do things. And this is it, my friend. Paycheck park it against this balance, bringing the new balance down to about $14,050. At the end of the month, they now pay their bills just like they would if they were using their checking account. But they're going to pay it out of the availability of this debt weapon. You know that they have $25,000 available. So they're going to pay their living expenses at the end of month one. But guess what? They don't have a mortgage payment in month one because they already gave $20,000 to this mortgage. So at the end of month one, the new balance is approximately $16,375. At the beginning of month two, they then paycheck park the revenue for that month into this balance, dropping the new balance down to approximately $10,425. And at the end of month two, they then pay both the mortgage and the living expenses. If you're not following along, that's okay. This is why we offer that personal implementation coaching session, so we can show you how this technique applies in your circumstances. Perhaps there's an even better technique for your circumstances, and that's what we will evaluate during that free session. Pay as close attention as you can and follow along as well as possible, and we will help you through the process. As you can see here, $14,350 is the end of the month balance after month two, approximately. This is what we call full cycle. Now, full cycle means that every month from this point forward, the income of approximately $5,950 on average will be parked against the balance, and at the end of the month, both the mortgage and the living expenses will be paid out of the debt weapon, which is a total of $3,925 on average, leaving the cash flow in the account just like it would be left in a checking or a savings account. And what that means is that I can now take this existing balance, the remaining balance of $14,350, and I can just divide it by the cash flow to determine how many months are left. As you can see here, 7.1 months remain. Now, I want to point out a couple of things that may be on your mind. The first is that when we paycheck park the income every month, on average $5,950 in Dan and Megan's case, this counts as the monthly payment on this account. So we do not have an additional payment. Secondly, I want to prove that interest rates are interesting. Are they important? Yes. Are they as important as you've been taught? Probably not. Interest rates are simply interesting. This $20,000 debt weapon, we are going to use a 12% interest rate for this example to prove to you that you can use a higher interest rate to pay off a lower interest rate as long as the term is less. Because what's important to you is not what your interest rates are. What's important to you is how much interest you will end up paying throughout your life, right? You care more about the total amount of interest that you will pay, not what your interest rates were. So let's go back to this example. We take $14,350 divided by $2,025 in cash flow equals 7.1 months plus month one and month two. And then we're going to add in the interest that we have not yet accounted for. Okay, I'm going to add 0.9 months worth of interest. 0.9 months is 0.9 of the cash flow. So that's a total of $1,823. This is actually much higher than a 12% interest rate, but I want to make sure we're conservative here for this example so that you can see that there are no smoke and mirrors. It's just a better way to manage your cash flow. When we add all that together, it's a total of 10 months for this cycle. 10 months before this original $20,000 lump sum that we got from a debt weapon provided by the bank is paid back. And at no point in time did I ever come to the living expenses for Dan and Megan and tell them, look guys, you need to give up your coffee, don't go out to eat, don't go shopping. This was already what they were spending on average. Okay, this was not them making sacrifices to lifestyle. 10 months and we paid back the original $20,000. Do you have any idea the power behind what's going on here? It's okay if you don't. I'm going to show you right now. This is known as an amortization schedule. This is interest and this is principal. Some of my friends actually refer to this as the most insidious device ever created by mankind. And let me explain why. This is the beginning of year 1. And in this term, this is the end of year 30. This will work even if you have a 20-year or a 15-year term on your mortgage. In the beginning of your term, you see that there's a lot more money going towards interest in each payment than principal, even though this is a simple interest loan where you're only paying interest on what you've borrowed. What we're going to do is flip this upside down. In month 1 with Dan and Megan, do you remember what the total amount was that we borrowed from that debt weapon in order to make a lump sum payment? As you may remember, it was $20,000 that we gave in month 1 to start cycle 1. And that was paid back over a 10-month period. But here's the significance. Over that 10-month period, they are now paying the same principal as though they've been paying on this loan for a total of about 4.5 years. That's right. That one lump sum payment that they made in month 1 drove them about 4.5 years down the amortization chart. In month 11, they paid back the original lump sum amount, and they did another lump sum payment of $20,000, which starting month 11 drove them nearly 8 years down the amortization schedule. So in month 11, they were already paying on this payment the same principal as though they'd been paying on this loan for about 8 years. Isn't that amazing? And I'm going to show you the dollar amount here in a minute because it's incredible. We're going to follow this process cycle after cycle and literally chop this amortization schedule into pieces. Let me go ahead and show you Dan and Megan's cash flow cruncher now so that you can see what that will look like. You will get your own copy of this and I'll show you how to do that at the end of today's training. So this is the cash flow cruncher that I've been talking about. As you can see here, this is the economic independence page. There are a number of different tabs here listed at the bottom. And the nice thing about this economic independence page is that it will summarize the data that you input into each one of these tabs. It will automatically carry it over and you can see those numbers for Dan and Megan listed here. The most significant information on this page, in my opinion, is the net cash flow. As you can see, the $2,024 or $2,025 is listed here of their net cash flow. This is the difference on average between what they earn and what they spend. You can see their revenue and assets page lists Megan. She had a consistent income at her W-2 position. Dan had inconsistent income, so he put his average take-home and accounted for his taxes. So this was the average amount that he was earning each month. You can see their credit scores are very good. And in fact, these are much better than when we first started. I will show you how those were increased. So even if you don't have good credit, this process is very important for you. You can see that the retirement accounts are listed here. Did not have a lot of money in retirement, but that's okay because what we're doing is we're going to start building wealth at the same time as them attacking their debts. You can see that after 3 years of us working with them, their mortgage is now listed here. They were renters originally, and now they own. You can see all of their debt weapons listed here where they've got a lot of money available to them with no balances at all. Living expenses are listed here. Okay. You can see business expenses. Dan had a few with his small business. And what I'm going to do is take you all the way to this far tab for mortgage calculator. Okay. As you can see here, we've got a $290,000 loan amount, 5.2% interest rate, $283,000 worth of interest if they pay the way that the bank has requested. At the bottom of the mortgage calculator page, you will be provided an amortization schedule. So if I were to scroll down, you can see here that this just keeps going and going and going. It's pretty scary when you look at it in terms of months. All the way to 360 when this original balance is paid back, okay? So here's what we do. We're going to go ahead and put a $20,000 amount into this extra payment column and watch what happens. I want you to keep your eyes here on the total interest field and the total interest saved field. This is one move in Dan and Megan's plan. Watch this. $283,000 suddenly becomes just $219,000. They're going to save over $64,000 in interest with just one move. Let's go down to month 11. As you can see here, we're going to put another $20,000 in there for the next cycle, and you can now see that Dan and Megan are on pace to save over $111,000 in interest with just two moves on their mortgage elimination plan. That's unbelievable, isn't it? It's got to make you wonder why you weren't taught this in school. Look at this. They've saved almost 8 years on their mortgage with two simple moves and no sacrifices to lifestyle. Now, I want to make sure and emphasize that this does not work without discipline and consistency. If Dan and Megan were just spending their extra cash flow every month, they wouldn't be able to do this. Now, what happens after their third cycle? 21 months later, they do it again. $20,000, $143,000 in interest saved. This just keeps getting better and better, doesn't it? Let me just show you what this would look like if they followed this process all the way through this amortization and paid this balance in full. That original $283,000 in interest suddenly becomes about $72,500. If that doesn't get your blood racing, you lead a much more exciting life than I do. In fact, that's a $210,000 savings. And even more important to some people is that Dan and Megan have the ability to save about 257 payments on their mortgage. Take your mortgage in your mind and multiply it times 250. What if I was only half right? Let's say that we were only able to save them 100 payments. Is that a lot of money to you in your life? So even though results vary between students, it doesn't take a lot of saved payments before it turns into a lot of money. So let's keep moving forward because cash flow stacking is what we're talking about now. It's all about investing simultaneously to paying off debt. It's not good enough to just do one or the other. If you only invest and you leverage everything, you take on too much risk. If you pay off all of your leverage but you don't invest, then you don't have residual passive income to replace what you're earning at work and allow you to retire eventually. But you can use these debt weapons to diversify wealth through cash flow stacking, meaning that you can use the debt weapon, acquire income-producing assets, which will then allow you to paycheck park that additional cash flow and increase the momentum, and then park it right back into the debt weapon. We've seen people do this with a number of different income-producing assets. One, for example, might be real estate. People buy these investment properties that cash flow every single month, driving their cash flow position higher and higher, accelerating the results that they get through the cash flow stacking. It's really an unbelievable process. We have a total of 17 credit maximization techniques, 34 techniques that raise your cash flow every month, 28 and 16 techniques that revolve around debt, accelerating the elimination of debt and total debt weapons. And the reason I point this out is because you and I will use the exact same techniques. But our plans are totally different. Our circumstances are totally different. So the order of our techniques will vary substantially. And it's important for you to understand that because there are infinite combinations, meaning that if you follow my plan, you will get yourself into trouble potentially. You will not get the same results inevitably. If I follow your plan, I might get myself into trouble and I will absolutely not get the same results that you do. So be very careful not to attach yourself to the plan that we're talking about today. Even though this is a real life case study, your plan will be different utilizing a lot of the same techniques. Okay, so I just want to make sure we disclaim that. Now, if you have any consumer debts whatsoever, this is extremely important for you to listen to. If you don't have consumer debts, then that's great because we're going to talk about how to pay off consumer debts which are in the way of you being able to achieve what we just covered. If you just have a mortgage, then you are tailor-made for this system. But if you have consumer debts, you got to get rid of those first. And we're going to talk about that quickly, and then I'm going to show you how to properly get access to debt weapons and exactly what debt weapons are. So when you strategically eliminate all your non-mortgage debts quickly, you have to look at 4 categories. There are 4 things to consider in order for you to understand the best accounts to pay off first. The first thing that we consider are the target rates. Now, target rates are totally different than interest rates. I'm trying to help you understand that interest rates aren't as important as you've maybe been taught they are. However, target rates are really important, and a lot of people have never heard of them. The target rate is the minimum payment related to the balance that you owe. So if you take the minimum payment and you divide it by the balance, it will tell you what your target rate is. As you look at the cash flow cruncher that you'll get a copy of, and you go to the debts page on this cash flow cruncher, you can see that the target rates are actually calculated for you over here on this gray column. So it makes life a little easier for you. Target rates mean that you will get more cash flow when that account is paid. So when you pay that account down or off, your cash flow position increases. And we believe that cash flow equals choices. If you don't have any money left over at the end of each month, then you do not have any choices. Some people spend more money than they earn each month, which is considered negative cash flow, and it's a very dangerous place to be. So the more cash flow you have, the more choices you have, and that's why we're always looking to increase your cash flow position. The next thing that we look at as we strategically eliminate non-mortgage debts quickly is the type of account. Installment accounts, such as mortgages or automobile loans, are treated entirely differently than revolving accounts, such as credit cards or lines of credit. You can draw against lines of credit, you cannot draw against mortgages. Okay, so we want to make sure that we're always considering the type of an account because one impacts cash flow and the other does not. And we don't have time to go into all the details on consumer debts today. We also have to consider what the impact to your credit scores is going to be as we attack consumer debts strategically. You don't want to do something that's going to have a significant negative impact to your credit scores if your credit scores are needed in order to produce the results that you're looking to achieve. Because there will be an immediate impact to your credit, whether it's for the better or for the worse. And finally, the interest rates. The interest rate that I care the most about is a 0% interest rate. Because 0% means that the money is going towards principal, and I look at that as an indirect form of cash flow. Okay, so we look at all 4 of these categories, and let me show you how this all came together for Dan and Megan. But before I do, I want to look at their beginning cash flow cruncher, which was pretty scary. As we look at their cash flow cruncher, this is the one they originally filled out when we asked them to start, really reconsidering their plan and their behavior. As you can see here, they had a total net cash flow position of $390 per month. Isn't that scary? $390 per month on average. Now, the reason I say that was scary is because when we look at their debts page, and by the way, you can see their revenue and assets really weren't a whole lot different. They had $5,750 in average take-home income, so it was $200 less than later. And the reason it was less is because we helped them plug leaks. We suggested that they reconsider that tax refund they were getting every year. Not a great idea to get a tax refund and lend your money to the IRS all year. You can see that their reserves really weren't much better, but this was the big concern, and this is actually why we began working with them. They had a total of $20,000 and $15,000 on 2 automobile loans for a total of $35,000. $750 in total minimum payments. And you can see that they had 3 credit card accounts that needed to be paid off. Their debt load was $49,900. Now, this was before they had a mortgage. In fact, if you go to their living expenses page, they should have their rent, which was approximately the same as their mortgage. They had a $1,600 rent payment every month that was listed here. So this was pre-home ownership. Okay, we're going backwards inside their chronological history. $49,900 in consumer debt. That's a ton. Look at this, $1,136 in minimum payments every month. Now, I've got to disclaim this by telling you that they actually hired us to help them with their plan. All right, so they actually paid us almost $4,000 for a 2-year membership into our coaching mentorship, and we did reluctantly agree that they were qualified. In most cases, people that don't have a mortgage are not qualified, but that brought this balance up to $5,400. It was about $1,400 before. Okay. With that being considered, what I want to do is ask you a question. I want you to think about the answer to this. And I'm going to put a poll up, okay? I want you to answer there on your screen. If you think that Dan and Megan are going to be capable of paying this debt off with a total of $390 per month in average cash flow and no change in behavior in under 10 years, go ahead and select A. If you think that with no change in behavior, they could pay this off in between 10 to 20 years, go ahead and select B. Select C if you think it'll take 20 to 30 years, and select D if you think it will take over 30 years and potentially never. And I'll give you my answer here in a little bit. I'll also put the results up of that poll at that same time. So let's go back to their summary slide here. And this is after we plugged leaks. We were actually successfully able to plug about $510 each and every month in leaks inside this cash flow cruncher after we met them. We found $510 on average each month. So you can see their average take-home income went up. That's because we suggested they talk to a tax professional, change their withholdings, not get that $3,000 tax refund every single year, which is just a waste of cash flow every month. Also, their average expenses went down because we raised their credit scores by giving them some education on exactly what impacts the credit scores. And in a short period of time, their credit scores jumped from where they were. Let's take a look at those quickly. Revenue and assets page, their credit scores, pretty poor. You can see 668, 671, 683, 676. We needed those to get over a 700 at a minimum. Okay, so we gave them some basic action steps that would help them. In fact, those results happen 3 to 5 times more quickly and are more effective than credit repair. Okay, so going back to this summary page, you can see that they now have an average cash flow of about $900 per month after we help them plug leaks without giving up lifestyle. Over here, you can see all of the debts listed. And let's go ahead and look at the results of that poll now. Okay, looks like a lot of us agree. I almost hate to admit it, but I think that they were probably sentencing themselves to a lifetime of this debt if they didn't change their behavior. I mean, they would probably just pay these cars off, go out and get a couple new car loans. They would probably just cycle through the debts here on these credit cards, and they'd probably never, ever get out of debt. I mean, it makes you wonder how much interest they would have spent. If it were never, obviously it was an infinite amount of interest if they were going to die with consumer debt. And a lot of people have sentenced themselves to debt. So don't be one of those people. We use this $20,000 debt weapon. And guess what? We're going to follow the same set of techniques that we practiced the first time on the mortgage. And watch what happens here. This is really incredible. We take $20,000, and of that 20, we're going to borrow $14,900 and coincidentally pay off the 3 credit cards first. It doesn't always work that way. But when we do, the minimum payment obligation on these accounts obviously goes to 0. And you can see over here, the minimum consumer debt payments drops to $750, these 2 accounts here. So let me just show you that again. Okay, you can see their minimum consumer debt payments were $1,135 to begin with, and you can see that on their cash flow cruncher on their economic independence page. You can see their debt payments $1,136. All right, we're rounding it to make it easy. So you've got $1,135 in debts. When we pay that off, their new debts is $750, totaling $4,665 for their total average expenses each month. And this includes everything. This includes their average unpredictable circumstances, et cetera, et cetera. And their new cash flow position goes from $900 to about $1,285. Now, you may remember that we have to account for a minimum payment on this, don't we? Yes, we do. But when they paycheck park this average take-home income each month against this balance, it counts as the new monthly payment, which drops the balance to approximately $8,950 for the majority of the month. And then at the end of the month, they pay their expenses out of this account. Now, you may say to yourself, well, they're going to have to pay expenses all month long. Yes, that's true. But we have a way to make this to where you can almost lump sum everything together in one payment throughout the month. And then the new balance at the end of month 1 becomes $13,615. It's very easy to do the math on this if this account were at a 0% interest rate. We know it's not, so I'm going to add the interest in at the end. But if this were at 0%, it's easy to do the math. You take the $14,900 minus the cash flow equals the new end of the month balance. So it's the cash flow that's paycheck parked against this balance, just like it would be paycheck parked into a checking account. The difference is we're now giving every dollar a job. Do you understand that? And here's another thing about that. Here's a great way to look at it. Interest prevented is the same thing as interest earned. So if we paycheck park $59.50 into an account that charges 12%, we're essentially earning 12% on this income. So we could just wash, rinse, and repeat this process every single month, where every month we paycheck park and every month we pay the expenses at the end of the month, which means I can take the starting balance, divide it by the cash flow, and it'll tell us about how many months it would take to pay this back if this were at 0%. Now, I know this is a lot of really fast information. This is like drinking from a fire hose. I get that. Just stay to the end and I'll give you the phone number so that you can call and get your personal implementation coaching session for free in order for you to see how this will work for you. Just pay close attention for now and try and follow along as best as possible. So we're going to wash, rinse, and repeat this process every single month, which means I can take the starting balance, divide it by the cash flow, and the calculation at 0% interest would be 11.6 months. We're going to add the interest in now. I'm going to do 0.9 months, which is actually higher than 12% interest. And I'm going to go ahead and add an additional month just to make sure that you see that we're being conservative. These were, we can call them unexpected costs, but unexpected costs are already accounted for here in the average living expenses. So this is an unnecessary addition that I'm putting in here so that you can see we're being very conservative with this example. This makes cycle 1 a total of 13.5 months. Now let me show you the power of this, because what we're going to do next is attack both of these two auto loans strategically. And let me show you how quickly this was able to be paid back. We do the same thing over the course of a couple more cycles, total of 3. Watch what happened. 13.5 months for the first one that we just reviewed together, total of 13.4 for a second cycle, and a total of 8 months for cycle 3, meaning that in just 2.9 years, we were able to pay back $49,900 in debt. Only 1% of you thought that we would be able to pay this back in under 10 years. And I think you're right. With no change in behavior, I couldn't agree more. But look at what a little behavior change and a lot of control ended up doing for Dan and Megan. How much interest do you think they saved? Realistically. Now, in order to do this, we need debt weapons, and I'm going to teach you all about debt weapons now. Over that 3-year period of time, we were able to help Dan and Megan put a plan together where they got access to about $78,500 in total debt weapons. We were also able to raise their credit scores, and I'm going to teach you where to get your FICO scores today too, okay? We've all been taught that we need 6 months, maybe even a year of money in the bank for a rainy day. But why does that money have to sit in a checking or a savings account? Why can't that money be available for any reason, anytime through a debt weapon? So let's go forward in their plan. Before we could even pay off the consumer debt, which then led us to being able to pay off the mortgage and put the plan together to do so, we had to identify new and existing debt weapons. And we did that in April of 2009. This is where the financial control comes in. Every debt weapon achieves one or more of these purposes in order to qualify as a debt weapon. Let's review the purposes first, and then I will show you the debt weapons that we use on a daily basis. The first thing that a debt weapon does is it maximizes your cash flow. So if you have more money left over at the end of the month, your life will be easier and you will be able to achieve your financial goals more quickly. Secondly, debt weapons allow you to compress amortization schedules, meaning that if something would normally take 30 years to pay off, or 20 years to pay off, or 15 years to pay off, and you could pay it off in a fraction of the time with no sacrifices to lifestyle, it's probably worth considering as a strategy. Next, debt weapons allow you to create better bank accounts than what you have now. I've proven that already, where you can put every dollar to work. Debt weapons allow you to invest more quickly and safely. Next, you can minimize the volume of interest that you will pay. What we're showing you right now is proof that there's a chance you could prevent as much as 80% of the interest that you will pay throughout your lifetime. And finally, you can enhance your FICO scores further and faster. The bottom line is this: you must have a 700 or higher FICO score in order to qualify for $2,000 to $150,000 per debt weapon. At no point in time should you ever be done looking for access to more debt weapons. Most people get access to between 1 and 3 debt weapons per year safely. The questions that you must answer in order to pursue a debt weapon are: which debt weapon should I get? Where do I go to get it? When should I apply for it? And what purpose will it serve once I have it? If you cannot answer these 4 questions, then you should not get debt weapons. We spend between 5 to 15 hours worth of research time each week investigating the answers to these questions. And the reason for that is because a lot of the best debt weapons out there are offered by the banks. And wouldn't you agree that the banks like to change their rules? They mix things up a lot, don't they? So what's here today might be gone tomorrow. Which is why it's so important to understand the answers to these questions. We have a 6-page questionnaire that we use when we call the banks to ask them about their debt weapons. Now, obviously, we don't call them debt weapons when we call, but I do want to point one thing out. Even though you're never done looking for access to more debt weapons, And even though there's no such thing as too much credit, there's only such a thing as too much debt. If you are not financially responsible, it is best to minimize the credit available to yourself. Okay, so make sure that you're not going out getting access to a lot of debt weapons that you are going to use frivolously or just simply squander. Because if you do, you're going to put yourself in a very dangerous place. If you use debt weapons properly, they will achieve one or more of these purposes here. The new plan that we're talking about, this is now you, looking much prettier, I might add. You're now working hard, getting that income, and instead of putting it into that checking or savings account where it's unemployed, we're now going to deposit it directly or indirectly into this debt weapon, where for that same 20 to 28 day period of each month, your money is doing all of those purposes, one or more of them. And at the end of the month, when you follow this process month after month after month, eventually your mortgage will be gone, your auto loans, credit cards, student loans, and tax liens will be gone, and all you will have to pay each month are the living expenses. So as you follow this process, it allows you to climb the cash flow ladder. Okay? It's a much better way to work things. So these are the debt weapons that we use every single day. So I'm not going to go over each one of these in detail because we don't have time. However, these acronyms are defined for you in your cash flow cruncher. So when you get your cash flow cruncher after you schedule your personal implementation coaching session, there will be a glossary of terms provided here that will outline these for you. Okay? So let's go through these quickly. These are the ones that are offered by the banks, by the way. One that I really like are unsecured business lines of credit. I like them so well, in fact, that we put together a free class to teach you how you can qualify for unsecured business lines of credit that 90 to 95% of the time will not report to your personal credit report. So if you're interested in watching that free class, you will get an email with a link to attend that as well. And I know you're learning things today that are blowing your mind. That will be the case with this too. Okay? These are the debt weapons that are offered outside of the banking institutions. These two here I'd also like to highlight because we've designed free classes on these. Also very important, powerful subjects. This one is IBC, which stands for the Infinite Banking Concept. If you are not familiar with the Infinite Banking Concept, or you learned about it and you weren't impressed, then you've got to make it a point to attend this class. You will get a link to that in a follow-up email after today. The Infinite Banking Concept is a tool that you can use to gradually eliminate the need for banks in your life ever again. Now, only about 1 out of 5 people should really be using this tool, but everybody should know about it. And if you don't know about it and you're not sure whether or not you should be using it, then make sure you watch that class. The other and final class is the little to no money down out of your own pocket for investing. All right, this is awesome. And I've recruited 2 really great experts for these classes to come in and teach you about these subjects. But if you don't have that much money, there are ways that you can actually invest and really maximize your cash flow position right now. There's so many opportunities out there. So let's go ahead and move forward. What I want you to take away from this class today is that by borrowing at a higher interest rate and paying over a shorter term, you can often pay significantly less interest. Quit getting so stuck in interest rates. What you care more about is the total amount of interest that you will pay throughout your lifetime. Okay, going back to Dan and Megan's chronological order, as we continue to work our way backwards, we would have never been qualified for these debt weapons if we didn't first focus on their cash flow, plug leaks inside their cash flow cruncher, and then really review their FICO scores and drive those higher. Okay? We reviewed the cash flow and FICO scores. Here are the goals that you need to know in order to achieve what we're talking about today. The target FICO score that you want to continue to shoot for if you don't have it is a 760 or better. If you do not have a FICO score of a 760 or better, then you are costing yourself money somewhere. Less than perfect credit can actually cost you as much as $64,000 over only a 5-year period of time. That's because of interest rates and insurance premiums. The minimum credit score that you need in order to achieve what we're talking about today is a 700 or higher. There are credit scoring maximization solutions that are far more effective than credit repair. If you do not have that 700 or better when you look at your credit, then make sure you bring that up during your personal implementation coaching session, and we will make sure that you get pointed in the right direction to get the education you need. In order to get your actual FICO scores, simply visit myfico.com. myfico.com. You can purchase them there. They're around $20 a piece for each bureau. It will not hurt you at all to pull your own FICO scores. If you pull from any other source other than my FICO, it will either count as a hard inquiry, which will hurt your scores, or you are not getting the actual scores the banks look at. Very important to know that. Two big reasons to focus on your FICO scores. The first is the one we covered already. It reduces expenses, but even bigger is the fact that you can enhance your borrowing power. In a very short period of time, we raised Dan and Megan's credit scores by just giving them basic action steps and educating them on the subject of how credit works to a 713 and a 726. So now they have over that minimum needed in order to get access to the debt weapon that they needed. We also went in and plugged leaks inside their cash flow cruncher. And we did that and found them about $510 on average every month. We can find over $100 each month for almost every person we speak with. And in some cases, it's over $1,000 a month. This is all about lifestyle preservation, but for less. And we do that through these three categories: tax planning, living expenses, and strategic budgeting. Before I give you the phone number to call and schedule your free coaching session, let me tell you about us and what authorizes us to teach you on these subjects. We were founded back in 2002, and we became national leaders on cash flow, debt, and credit. All of the education that we provide is free. And I'm sure you would agree that the details we covered today in a very short period of time taught you some important things. Imagine what you could learn over an extended period of time now that you know we exist. We get paid by helping people implement and offering accountability to actually making sure they follow a plan. Now that is something that only 6 out of 10 people qualify for. So not everybody is qualified for the services that we provide. We do have a perfect reputation with guaranteed results, which is why we're so strict about who we allow into the program. We've worked with a lot of different huge organizations providing this education over the last few years. And it's just now that we're starting to offer this online. So I really appreciate you participating in one of the first online versions of this class. My hope is that you got a lot out of this the same way that people who attend our live classes do. And I really hope that you're willing to share your feedback pertaining to this education. Now, what do you do next? That's the big question, because this is not intended to be an entertainment value. It is intended to be something that you plug into your life and it changes the outcome of your financial existence. The first thing you do is access a variety of tools to simplify your maps. I promised you a copy of the Cash Flow Cruncher as a bonus, and I will explain that on the last slide. Next, we will review your starting point by using that Cash Flow Cruncher as well as your destination goals. And we do that during your personal implementation coaching session. So you've got to complete the Cash Flow Cruncher before your session and spend no more than 30 minutes filling it out. There's no confidential information on that that will put you at risk. And finally, we will design a short-term plan for you by reversing your long-term goals. That's also free of charge during that implementation session. From there, you just have to be disciplined and accountable, and this will mathematically guarantee results for you. The fact is, the process can be very easy when it's broken into small, simple steps. When you look at it in an hour, it can be very overwhelming for some people. So what we want to do is make sure to determine whether or not you are qualified to revisit and revise your plan every month. Some people are and some people are not. First of all, I want to make sure you understand that everyone is qualified for the free coaching session. So even if things are looking really bad for you right now, that's okay. You can still be qualified for the session. The better off you are financially, the better off this plan works for you. The worse off you are financially, the more obstacles you have to get through in order for the process to work. And that's okay. You just have to make sure you're committed. This is a tool that everybody has access to for free. It's called mint.com, and it's actually owned by Intuit, which is the creator of QuickBooks and Quicken. Okay, so go in there, subscribe for mint.com. It will actually interface with your bank in order to download your transaction history. It really won't help you much with your debts, but it will definitely help you organize your spending. You can set goals and do reporting and all that stuff. Okay, pretty cool service. We've also created a FICO scoring map for you where we can actually itemize action steps based on each account that you have on your credit report, helping you understand what you could do in order for your credit scores to raise. And this is a bonus. We offer this for free to any new students who are qualified for the coaching service we provide. All right, and you can see some of the results here. 549 FICO climbed to a 696 in just 11 months. Pretty cool stuff. So that's what's possible in this. If you are qualified for coaching, you are offered an unlimited amount of coaching sessions, and they're all done over the telephone, including the initial free session. So it doesn't matter where you live. You can live anywhere in the country. Okay, the first session is free. If beyond that, you are qualified for the service and it's a good return on the investment for us to work together, then all of the coaching sessions beyond that will be over the phone. And you could get coached once a week if it made sense. Now, in most cases, people get coached about once every 3 to 4 weeks on average. And at the end of each coaching session, you are provided a series of homework assignments or action steps by your coach. And at the end of each homework assignment, you will put your results and then call and schedule your next coaching session. It's very easy when you break it into these small, simple steps. So we just put the plan together and make sure that you're accountable to following it. Okay, let's quickly cover the cost of coaching just in case you're curious about it. This is a membership that's possibly tax deductible. If you have a small business, I've never had a tax professional disagree with that because we will coach you on your business cash flow and debt by using the same techniques along with a significant amount of marketing material that we provide you at no charge. Okay, this is a 2-year relationship together regardless. Keep that in mind. This is a commitment that you will have to make, and it doesn't work if you don't make the commitment. It won't work if you don't make the commitment and you're not in coaching. This is going to require a behavior change. The cost for that, if coaching makes sense, is $4,760, just under $5,000. However, there is a discounted price of as much as $1,000 if you take the time to complete the online electronic survey form that will pop up on your computer screen at the end of today's training. So take 2 to 3 minutes after this is over. It'll come up momentarily, fill it out, and it will entitle you to this discount if and when we determine that coaching would be a good investment for you. The reason we are so strict about who we allow into our program is because of this guarantee. It is a 100% satisfaction guarantee, which means that we're going to do everything we can to take on the burden of the risk in this relationship. So since you don't have any risk in this relationship, we may not allow you in the program if we don't think you're going to get results. And we can determine that together, but we're committed to fixing anything that's broken during that 2-year period to make sure that your expectations are exceeded. The key question for us to answer is which plan is more expensive, ours or yours? We know ours is expensive. Even the discounted rate of $3,760 is expensive, but is it more expensive or less expensive than the plan you're on right now? Your mortgage is very expensive. If we can save you a significant number of payments, then it might be a good return on your investment. In fact, let's take a look at Dan and Megan's return for their plan. They paid us $3,760 and they saved $64,000 in interest in just one move for their mortgage elimination plan. On the second move, in month 11, you may remember they saved an additional $46,000. So over that first 8.5-year period of their mortgage home ownership, they were able to save approximately $210,000 in interest. Obviously, a great return on this investment here for them. We just want to see if maybe we can get comparable results for you. But either way, you'll get the free implementation coaching session to set you on the right course, regardless of whether or not we work together. First thing you need to do to get that is attend the class. So pat yourself on the back. Your first step is done. Let's now put this information into action. First thing to do with that is complete the online survey that's going to pop up on your screen momentarily. That will also qualify you for the discount. I've also promised you some bonuses for making it all the way to the end of this training, which you've now done. So the first bonus is the free, no sales, no pressure, personal implementation coaching session. Everybody is qualified for that, and it is absolutely no pressure. It is not our agenda to attempt to sell you into coaching. If we have to convince you that coaching is right for you, then you're going to fail either way. Next, I also am going to provide you a copy of the cash flow cruncher that you saw used throughout today's training for free. That will be emailed to you once you schedule your free session. It will be in the email confirmation. We will also send you some email reminders about the other classes that we provide. They're extremely good, and it will also help you in your cash flow plan. They're no cost to you whatsoever. As we told you earlier, all of our education is free. And the third and final bonus that I'm going to give you today is a $50 restaurant gift certificate following your personal implementation coaching session in order to help jumpstart your cash flow plan. And you will get that no matter what, even if we disqualify you from coaching. But the only way to qualify for the gift certificate is if you call and schedule your free session within the next 48 hours. This is the number to do that with. Call 866-969-2738. and leave a message if necessary. Write this number down. This is your last chance. 866-969-2738. And at this point, the survey form is going to come up on your screen. Take the time to complete that. If you request the free coaching session on that survey, then we will reach out to you and you will still qualify for the $50 restaurant gift certificate if you call us right back. We look forward to speaking with you here soon. Hopefully you got a lot of value out of this information. Please remember to share it with the people you care about so that you can change their lives as well. We're here to change the social economics of this country one household at a time, and we need your help to do it. We look forward to speaking with you here again soon. Until then, stay well.